Life limits no one and offers itself freely to all. If this is true, why are there so many unhappy people in the world? We have to question what Ernest Holmes might have been thinking when he wrote that. Well, we're at the end of January, believe it or not. And we're wrapping up our month where we've been talking about becoming or understanding that we are the architects of our lives. And this is the first month of our annual theme of creating a spiritual foundation, where we're going to look all year at the ways that we build a spiritual foundation for ourselves, for our lives. It's the temple of our lives, if you will. Today, my talk is declaring our good. And our spiritual principle we're going to look at is, our spiritual practice, I should say, is spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, the form of prayer that we teach here. Spiritual mind treatment, or SMT, you may see it abbreviated that way, is unique to the science of mind. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, the author of the Science of Mind text that we teach from, he practiced it, he taught it, he used it extensively in his life. He was at a point of belief so strongly in this prayer practice that it is the foundation of our teaching. He began teaching practitioners before he ever would license or teach ministers. You have to be a practitioner first. You have to learn the spiritual technology of prayer first. That's the priority of it, because it is so unique. And it's called scientific prayer because it has a formula and it's repeatable, and you will get results when you use it. So today I want to run through some basic ideas about spiritual mind treatment, what it is, how it works maybe, and also some personal reflection that we can do to be more successful at using it. Okay? How many are familiar with the 5 steps? The 5 steps. There's just 5 steps to learn, right? Very simple, 5 steps. Recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release. 5 little steps. Within those steps, that's where the technology comes, right? On how they blend together. What happens in each one of those? When we begin our prayer work, the first thing we're going to do is begin with centering, getting ourselves deeply connected to spirit, to source, to God. I'm going to use the word God a lot today, so if that rocks your world, translate in your head, okay? So deeply recognizing that God is all, getting ourselves to know that there's not God in anything else. There's not God and a devil. There's not God and them. There's just God. It is the all. It is the everything. And the thing about getting ourselves to that place is also the recognition of the infinite nature of this. I mean, if we think about all of the sand just on planet Earth, our deserts, our beaches, our oceans, around the whole planet, and all those little bitty grains of sand, there's a lot of them. It'd be hard to count, right? God's more infinite than that. We have this wonderful thing happening right now called the James Webb Space Telescope. Anybody seen those gorgeous pictures that are coming? Yeah, it's fascinating. Discovering all this new stuff. God's way beyond all that. Way beyond all that. God is infinite. We have a finite mind, and it is challenging for us to get that finite mind, which thinks in terms of terminations, endings, to open to the expansiveness of what infinite really means. I remember when I was I think it was about 3rd grade, when we start learning the negative and positive numbers. Teacher came in, drew that big line on the board, put the big 0 in the middle, and then put the positive numbers here and the negative numbers over there. And we said, well, where does it stop? She said, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. It's infinite. It was like, how can it be infinite? And she said, well, you have 0 through 9, and you can combine those numbers in infinite ways, and you just keep adding zeros, and you can just keep getting more numbers. You know, that's infinite. There's just more than we can grasp on the infinite nature. Understanding the infinite requires faith. It requires surrender, to accept. Accept there's only one. To really get ourselves to not experience this illusion of separation anymore. We feel like that we're separate from each other, but in the spiritual realm, we are not. We are not. So we convince ourselves through meditation, through argument, through faith, and through surrender. Remember, our meditation practice is how we started the year off in week 1. Reverend Lee was helping us to understand more about meditation. And that's because all of these practices build onto this affirmative prayer practice. The meditation gets us in alignment with Source. So once we've convinced ourselves, and that's what the purpose of prayer is, right? Is convincing ourselves. We're treating our own minds. Once we convince ourselves that this is true, we then move into the next step, which is unification. Unification, where we unify our consciousness in that oneness. If God is all, I can't be separate from that. That's logical, right? This is part of that scientific formula of the prayer treatment, is that these steps flow logically into each other. Once we get step 1, the rest of it gets pretty easy. Because we unify, we are in that all, we can't be separate from it, so we're there. We're unified with it. And we're not separate, we're all unified with each other and with God, and it's all one. And if it's true that we're in it, every circumstance, every situation, everything is in there too, right? Everything we desire is in there already. It's all there. So convincing our minds to believe these first 2 steps are true and logical just kind of propels us into the third step, which is to declare in the realization, step 3, our truth. We just declare what it is that we are seeking, what we desire. We don't have to ask. We don't have to beg. We don't have to plead. We don't have to wish. We just declare it because we've already said, God is all. I am that oneness, allness too, and everything else is too. So my good is right here with me already. I declare it. It is mine, just like Karen was singing, right? It is mine. We declare and we know. The secret to the power in affirmative prayer is in the first 2 steps, to really, really, really get ourselves anchored and grounded in those first 2 steps, to really know that. Then when it comes to declaring our good, it's easy, it's logical. Well, of course it's there too, right? Of course it is. When we're praying about a discordant fact. That's an old word, and that's Emma Curtis Hopkins used it, Ernest used it. It's a discordant fact. It's out of harmony. It's like going to the symphony and somebody hits a wrong note. Oh my gosh. It's discordant. And that's what happens with us in our minds and our bodies. Discordant stuff. It's out of the harmony of the natural and divine order of who and what we've come here and meant to be. So that's our aim, is to get back into alignment, back into that harmonious alignment with Source, with who we be. Once we've declared that truth, the truth of what it is we desire to see experienced in our lives, we then express our gratitude. Wouldn't you be grateful about that phase, about that time? Wouldn't you be grateful? Oh my gosh, I get it, I got it, yay! Right? That's kind of where we end up. It's this logical movement, which is really so exciting in prayer work. I don't know if you've all noticed working with your prayer practitioners that sometimes they might start off quiet and slow and then they build to a crescendo in their prayer work because they are moving through that emotional realization. The whole it's like, oh my gosh, I get it and I know it for you. I know this is the truth of you. And so it crescendos and we get to that gratitude and we're just so heartfelt grateful for what has occurred because I get it. I know it. I know it. God can only give to us what God can give through us. It's about acceptance. It's about acceptance. We must be open to receive. And gratitude helps us with that. Gratitude helps us to be more receptive. Sometime in your prayer work, imagine during the prayer work, when you get to the gratitude step, I'm going to open my eyes and it's going to be right here. The cash in my bank account, I'm going to get a note from my bank that says, boom, you've got a huge deposit come in. Or boom, my love of my life is sitting right in front of me. Imagine instant manifestation. When you open your eyes, it's right there. Would you be more engaged, more excited, more enthusiastic, more grateful? Yeah, that is the emotion that we want to get into our prayer work, is that idea that it really is done. It really is done. Gratitude helps us to feel the acceptance of our good. So, anybody keep a gratitude journal? We practiced that in November. Gratitude journals are practice for us to remember what gratitude feels like, so it helps us in our prayer work. All of these practices are related. All of these practices are related. So we've recognized, we've unified, we've realized, and we've been grateful. Now what do we do with it? Poof! Exactly. We release it. We let it go. Anybody ever planted seeds in the ground or in a pot? Did you go back the next day and dig them up? No, right? Because that's not how it works. We just watch it and love it and wait and see those green shoots coming up through the soil. It's like, yes, I don't know how it did it, but it did it, and there it is. And the same is true here. We plant our seed, we plant the cause in our prayer. And we just know that the soil, the law, is doing its work and is going to bring it in the perfect and divine right order and timing for us. So we release it into the action of universal law, the law of cause and effect. We have started cause. It's that first part of our teaching symbol. Number one is the seed, right? Top part. We've planted that seed now and we're releasing it into the action of the law. And then we are waiting to see that manifestation. A little caveat in there. The manifestation comes as we believe, right? The manifestation comes as we believe. So our beliefs and our thoughts have a lot to do with what that manifestation looks like, how soon it's going to come. So 5 steps. Sounds pretty simple. Ran through it in about 10, 15 minutes. Got it? Easy peasy, right? Well, it is, but there are some caveats that can trip us up if we're not clear and careful in our thinking. So let's talk about that. We talk about life as a mirror. You've heard us talk about that and teach that around here, that life is a mirror reflecting back to us that which we believe, that which we are. I don't know about you, but I have struggled with that at times in my life when the icky stuff comes up and I go, how is that a reflection of me? Really? It can't possibly be true. Anybody else? Yeah, it's hard to take that sometimes, take that principle when the reflection's not real pretty or comfortable. But I would guess most of us, I know for me, when I can grow through the pain of all that, when I can grow through it, do my spiritual work, come out on the other side okay, look back over what happened, I can usually identify the discordant thought, the discordant belief, what was going on with me that caused me to call that in, to call in that experience, to call in that event or situation or whatever happened. I can usually discover that as I grow through it. And when we discover those, that's an opportunity to heal them. That's our opportunity to heal. The second thing we need to be aware of is that we are all subjective to universal beliefs. These beliefs that certain things that we accept are true, even if they're not. Even if they're not. We accept allergy season, flu season, getting a cold once a year. We accept recession, negative economic news. We accept all those things. Yet when we look closely at these phenomena, we will see that not everyone experiences these negative effects. Did you know? Not everybody in Scottsdale experiences seasonal allergies, got the flu, has had a cold in 20 years, has suffered economic downturn. There are people who thrive in recessions, right? So we can't blame it on the economy or the weather. It is done as we believe. If we believe we're going to experience these things, we're going to experience these things because we're in alignment with them. We have a vibrational match to them. I shared in the newsletter yesterday that I'm rereading The Science of Mind again. It's about my 5th time through, I think. There's a reading guide in the front or the back of the book that you can read a little section every day, and you can get through the whole thing in a year. It's about like this, right? It's a big old book, but you can read a little bit every day, and you read the whole book. And I always learn something new. I go deeper with a concept every time I do this, and it just felt like this was a good year to start again, so to speak. But on Friday, I came across in the reading something that was really profound. Ernest said, while it is true that wrong conditions exist, they could not remain unless there were someone to experience them. Consequently, the experience must be in consciousness. Change the consciousness and the false condition will disappear. I took that into my meditation. And contemplated what wrong conditions am I allowing to remain in my life through the negative energy and attention that I'm giving them. That's a powerful question to ask ourselves, isn't it? It's something that we need to ask ourselves before we begin trying to transform through prayer. Because cleaning up our consciousness, like Ernest is talking about, really opens up prayer treatment to work through us, opens the gateway for spirit to move through us. Because spirit's always moving through us. We're blocking something, and now we want to clear that block, and we can do it through prayer, but it works a lot better and faster if we clear our consciousness first. We can't pray for 5 minutes about what we want different and then spend the next 23 hours and 55 minutes complaining and focusing on the negative condition. It just doesn't work. It's the tendency of our thinking. So in addition to our prayer work, we have to work on this thinking that has us focused on, oh, my aching back, or oh, my aching head, or oh, my whatever is happening, my empty bank account, my. You know, we have a tendency to focus on those problems instead of what we teach, turn away from it. Acknowledge it's there, but turn away from it. Turn away from it. Stop giving it our attention. Anybody ever go to bed mad, upset, You get up that way? Do you get up that way the same way the next morning? A lot of times we do. We wake up, we might feel fine, and then the next thing you know, you go, oh man, I can't believe that happened yesterday. Can you believe? And then over coffee, we want to talk about it. I can't believe they're gonna do, right? We're dragging the baggage of yesterday into today, into this brand spanking new day that it has full of possibilities. We're dragging the baggage from yesterday. Yeah. Choosing what we want to focus on. These are the ways that we sabotage our prayer work. It's imperative that we clean up our consciousness and discipline our minds. That's the key to really opening the gateways of manifestation. The practices like Reverend Lee and I've been sharing this month: meditation, visioning, journaling, affirmative prayer. These are in your toolbox. These are the tools in your toolbox to assist you in creating the spiritual foundation we're working on this year. We're giving you the tools and practices first, and then we'll give you some more advanced stuff. We're going to keep going with this all year. So we can clean up our consciousness, learn to control our mind, think what you choose to think, not what your parents, the media, your friends, or anybody else tells you to think. Choose what you want to think. We teach that principle is not bound by precedent. Have you ever heard that? Principle is not bound by precedent. So it doesn't matter what's happened to us before. The past doesn't matter. What matters is principle. What matters is principle. But our memories are deep, aren't they? And those memories come back and they haunt us and they stay there. I had one come up out of the blue yesterday when I was writing this talk, and I still don't know why. Well, I guess it came just so I could share it with you. But it was 45 years ago. Didn't even know the memory was still there, right? And I was in my early 20s. It was my second job in the big city of Dallas. I had moved from the country, and I was in the big city now. I was working in the apparel mart. Have you ever been to the Dallas apparel mart? It's massive. And I was working for one of the big buying offices there. And I was a receptionist. And this is before computers and spell check. Okay. And I had to type a memo to the home office. And in it, I misspelled the word maintenance. And I got so much pushback from corporate, from the facilities people, from my direct boss, everybody, that I had sent this memo out with a misspelled word in it. I was embarrassed, humiliated. I felt horrible shame. It was awful. But I had forgotten completely about that. And why would I remember that now? Why did that bubble up from my subconscious yesterday? So I had to ask myself, where in my life today am I living from shame or embarrassment, humiliation? I do spell it correctly now. Thank you. I'm very conscious of that word when I spell it now. That's true. And I ended up in property management and facilities maintenance work and stuff like that, which is also very funny. That one dawned on me this morning. But it's that stuff comes up for us, and it's opportunities for us to look at it. Where am I calling that in? Is that still active in me? Is that still active in me? So what memories are rattling around in your subconscious that are still active and activating, impacting your life today? Anybody heard of Buckminster Fuller? Yeah. He said, we are called to be the architects for the future, not its victims. It goes so well with our theme this month. What life are you consciously designing for yourself? What life are you consciously designing for yourself today that you will live tomorrow? The life we're living today is what we've been thinking about for the past 5 years, 10 years, all of our life perhaps. What life are you going to live tomorrow, next week, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What life are you designing for yourself? Using prayer treatment, affirmative prayer, is a powerful way to affect change in our lives. It works. How many have had answered prayer? Yeah, I mean, all of us basically, right? We've had answered prayer. We know it works. We know it works. Ernest said, anything you can dream is not too great for you to undertake if it hurts no person, is in keeping with the divine nature, and brings happiness and good into your life. Anything you can dream is not too great. What dream can you help you make manifest in your life? Well, if you'd like more information about this, we have a couple of opportunities. One is our Mindful Monday newsletter. Reverend Lee and I send that out every Monday. It's a recap of today's talk and the practice that we're going to talk about, our spiritual practice for the week. You can use QR code, email us. I think there's maybe even a sign-up sheet in the lobby. Lots of ways to sign up for that. What that does is allows you then to apply these principles in your life throughout the week. You can reread the talk, you can watch the video, you can use the practice we're going to give you. Do I have? I do. Good deal. So we have our practice this week. Practice affirmative prayer. Surprised? We have these affirmative prayer brochures. They're in the lobby for you. It is the steps outlined for you. It is then a prayer sample, and on the back you can write your own prayer. You can use a separate piece of paper and write your own prayer. On the back is the teaching symbol for Centers for Spiritual Living. This is a handy brochure to use and practice for learning affirmative prayer. So I invite you to pick one of those up on your way out today and use that this week. Use that this week. Write a prayer for something that you desire, that you would like to see manifest this week. This week. And write your prayer for that. And then use your spiritual practices that we've been working with, your meditation, journaling, visioning, and prayer, to manifest this desire. See what unfolds for you this week through using this powerful technology. You can also stay for the workshop afterwards. We're going to spend a couple of hours going even more deeply into this. Less of the nuts and bolts, more of the application. So how many are thinking about staying for that? 2? All right. We're going to have some one-on-one good time. All right. Affirmative prayer treatment is different from begging and beseeching. We are not trying to convince God to give us a goodie. Change his mind about us because we're so special. It's not how it works. We're simply declaring. We're declaring that the good that we desire is already ours because it is. We're affirming that good. We're aligning our consciousness with the good that already exists and using the prayer to convince ourselves of that truth, not some reluctant God. Because God doesn't care. God's already given everything. You may think of it as the law of attraction. Y'all have heard of that, right? We teach it here. Esther Hicks, popular teaching that. It's really the law of cause and effect. It's really the law of cause and effect. We are the cause in our life. We can set new causes in action. And the affirmative prayer process is then the way that we kind of pull that through, if you will. We set that new cause and we pull it through to its manifestation. This week, choose to set your affirmative cause in motion in your life. Use the prayer practice. I'm going to close with Thomas Jefferson this morning. Thomas Jefferson says, if you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do something you have never done. True? True. So let's go do something we've never done. Let's all have a manifestation this week and come back to tell the story next week. All right. So it is. And it is your turn. So, who has comments or questions? Complaints? Whatever? Victoria.
Well, here's a question that I've always had. How specific should that prayer treatment be? Now, let's just say you're looking for a house and you find this one. That's the one you want. But there might be 5 other people from Science of Mind that want that house too. So I've always felt that, what I do is, what is the feeling behind this thing that I'm going to have? The feeling of, a home that's a shelter and so on and so forth, as opposed to, I want that red Corvette or I want that house. It's kind of the feeling. Is that right?
We're going to go into that deeply this afternoon, but yes, it is. When we say it has to be 45, 15, 91st way, that house, that's when we get in trouble. Because like you say, there might be another Science of Minder that goes, no, I want that house. Or that house might not be right. There may be something wrong with that house we don't know about, and now we're calling them the wrong thing. So it is the idea of, what is the living experience I'm calling in? I'm calling in the living experience of home. What's most important in the home for me? Maybe it's my office, my beautiful and expansive office where I am creating content that is inspiring and empowering and so we're building the feeling around what the experiences we're living. Good question.
Just like that. I think Steve was in the job market. I'm sure he didn't outline it absolutely perfectly. It was just the perfect position for him. And that thing about thank God for unanswered prayers.
Yes,
Because,
ma'am.
you wanted, when I was dating, there would be somebody I wanted. And then I afterwards think, oh, thank God. We didn't get together. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's about the experience. It's not about the job. It's about, what are my gifts to give and where's the best place to give them? Yeah. Good question. Lori, you got something? You have that look.
How would you help somebody who's very glued to the outside opinions, who's looking to media and news and all of these different things, especially in our political climate right now? What would be the first thing? So for all of us here, we're like, okay, yeah, I get that. But how would you help somebody to take the first step of first trying to understand or even take the action of turning away from that input to try to find more of the truth?
Good question. I have a coworker who was I will say was addicted to the news. Would get in the vehicle and talk radios on and it's all the political channels and things. And I commented a couple of times, can't believe you listen to that. That's just me. And about 2 weeks ago, he said, I don't even listen to the news anymore. I don't even know what's going on. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I just finally realized it just upsets me. Why do I listen to it? And that's the thing. What is the benefit that is being derived from that experience, from listening to the news, from hearing all of the things that are going on? And Science of Mind, we say, watch the news. That's where your prayer work is. Watch what it does to you. That's where your prayer work is. Watch what it brings up in you. That's where your prayer work is. So, if you're dealing with someone that is choosing that outlet for their spiritual food, so to speak, if they aren't interested in changing it, it's going to be a hard sell. But if they are recognizing the negative impact it has on them, then they may be open to something different. And there's the balancing of the negative ideas with turning that to a positive idea. Okay. Colette.
Okay, I have a question about the quote that Ernest Holmes that you had up there about putting emphasis on something, and what are you putting emphasis on, and trying to change that. So how would you address somebody that may have a health issue, and while they are, doing the affirmative prayer, and I know you say it once and let it out, and yet they're having complications with that health. How, even though you don't want to concentrate on that, and you want to concentrate on being whole and complete, and yet life is still sending them different things. How would you go about helping with that?
Good question. Thank you. This is where we call in our prayer practitioners. Because when particularly our body, most anything, but our bodies can really get our attention through this wonderful thing called pain. And it can be challenging to mentally overcome pain in our body and to always know the truth. The example I give is, if I've got a sore elbow or something, and every time I move it hurts, my attention is ow, ow, ow every time I move. That's negating my prayer. So I have to turn away from that, and that can be hard for me when this is screaming at me. Can I hold my discipline in my mind strong enough to overcome that? Or can I sit with it still when there is no pain and simply keep affirming, gosh, that feels so good. That feels so wonderful. That feels so much in harmony and alignment. Look how wonderful this one is. This one works just great. It feels just great. And calling your prayer practitioners, because they can know the truth because they don't have the distraction of the pain. So keep calling them in to support you with it, doing your own work in consciousness, but call in those prayer practitioners because they can hold the truth for you when you can't. Bob.
Very good sermon. Enjoyed it. Victoria and most of the other people have commented on the objective part. I kind of want to go to the subjective part. All right. Early on, you were talking about spiritual maturity and the pain of living, and how do they relate? Seems like pain is always there in the learning process.
I might consider that a universal belief, that the only way we can learn is through pain.
Right. Okay. So spiritual maturity is painful.
Can be, but I don't believe it has to be.
Okay.
I don't believe it has to be. I think when we can move in the direction of enlightenment, that we don't have to go through pain, we can use the processes of simply letting go rather than fighting our way through. We're just letting go.
Don't hang on to it.
Attachment, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Thank you all for that. Thank you, Joe. I love our conversations after service. Also wonderful. We're going to have more of that in the workshop. If you change your mind, everybody's welcome. Go grab a bite if you want, and noon we'll get started. And we'll just spend some quality time talking more about this and answering your questions and talking about some more tips and tricks. All right, so join me in prayer to anchor this message this morning. Recognizing that there is one power and presence that is God divine, the infinite source and presence of all that is. It is wholeness of life. It is love, peace. It is infinite intelligence and wisdom. All of that is here now, present in, through, and as each one of us in this room, for there is no separation. God is everywhere, always present. Not more of it in one place or the other. It's all right here. In, through, and as us. Living, moving, having its being through us and experiencing itself through us and our lives and our choices and our decisions and everything that we do. Because we are individualized and unique expressions of it. And so knowing this, I know for each of us today that whatever's on our hearts, whatever that desire is, as we get ourselves out of the way and allow Spirit to simply move through us, that desire is made manifest, whole, perfect, and complete, just like we are. I know as we call that desire to our minds, up from our hearts, up from the soul of our being, that it is lifted into this prayer, into the conscious awareness of this thing called life, and that we are here to live it to its fullest, to enjoy it, to live in opulence and success and love and peace and harmony, perfect health. That's what we're here for. And in this moment, I say that sacred yes to receiving all of that for each one of us as we go forth into the world, expressing the mission of this center, the mission of our lives, and showing others the light, our light, showing them the way. I bless this center and all who attend it. I bless all faith traditions, knowing that there are many ways, many paths to the divine, but there is only one source. And so it's with gratitude for the manifestation of this prayer, for this teaching, and for each and every person in this room, that I release it into the action and activity of law, knowing that it is done and it is so. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.